with this story. They all lined up so full of hope, each thought to win that race, or tie for first, or if not that, at least take second place. Their parents watched from the sides, each cheering for their son, and each boy hoped to show his folks that he would be the one. The whistle blew, and off they flew like chariots of fire to win. To be the hero there was each young man's desire. One boy in particular, whose dad was in the crowd, was running in the lead and thought, "My dad will be so proud." But as he speeded down the field and crossed a shallow dip, the little boy who thought he'd win lost his step and slipped. Trying hard to catch himself, his arms flew every place, and midst the laughter of the crowd, he fell flat on his face. As he fell, his hope fell too. He couldn't win it now. Humiliated, he just wished to disappear somehow. But as he fell, his dad stood up and showed his anxious face, which the boy so clearly said, "Get up and win the race." He quickly rose, no damage done, behind a bit, that's all, and ran with all his mind and might to make up for his fall. So anxious to restore himself, to catch up and to win, his mind went faster than his legs. He slipped and fell again. He wished that he had quit before, and only with one disgrace. "I'm hopeless as a runner now, I shouldn't try to race." But through the laughing crowd, he searched and found his father's face, with a steady look that said again, "Get up and win that race." So he jumped up to try again, 10 yards behind the last. If I'm to gain those yards, he thought, I've got to run real fast. Exceeding everything he had, he regained 8, then 10, but in trying hard to catch that lead, he slipped and fell again. Defeat, he lay there silently, a tear dropped from his eye. There's no sense running anymore. 3 strikes. I'm out. Why try? I've lost, so what's the use, he thought. I'll live with my disgrace. But then he thought about his dad, who soon he'd have to face. Get up, an echo sounded loud, or sounded low. You haven't lost at all, for all you have to do to win is rise each time you fall. Get up, the echo urged him on. Get up and take your place. You were not meant for failure here. Get up and win that race. So up he rose to run once more, refusing to forfeit, and he resolved that win or lose, at least he wouldn't quit. So far behind the others now, the most he'd ever been, still he gave it all he had and ran like he could win. 3 times he'd fallen, stumbling, 3 times he rose again. Too far behind, too hoped to win, he still ran to the end. They cheered another boy who crossed the line and won first place. Head high and proud and happy, no falling, no disgrace. But when the fallen youngster crossed the line in last place, the crowd gave him a greater cheer for finishing the race. And even though he came in last, with head bowed low, unproud, you would have thought he'd won the race, to listen to the crowd. And to his dad, he sadly said, I didn't do so well. To me you won, his father said. You rose each time you fell. And now when things seem dark and bleak and difficult to face, the memory of that little boy helps me in my own race. With ups and downs and all you have to do to win is rise each time you fall. And when depression and despair shout loudly in my face, and another voice within me says, get up and win the race. Brothers and sisters, I want you each to kind of sit there and think about that story, as that story has multiple different meanings, multiple different ways to interpret what that child was going through. However, how I interpret this, it kind of went back on my mission. Now you're going to hear another mission story. But I served back in 2014 to 2016 in Chicago. And when I entered the MTC, I was not much of a religious person. I went through seminary, I went to church, went to young men's, but I kind of just went with the flow. I never felt involved, never felt engaged. I wasn't the most spiritual person. I never really read scriptures besides to pass seminary. And at then I'm surprised I did that. So it was hard going into a mission and realizing that you got to be indulged. You got to be faithful. You have to have a testimony. You have to feel the Spirit. You have to read the scriptures. And for me, that was a big change. So going in MTC, it was without a doubt very difficult for me. I hated it, to say the least. The food was probably the only thing that I was going for. I was ready to quit. I was ready to give up. I was ready to go home. Told my parents multiple times, just with the MTC, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And then there was one scripture that was brought to my attention in the MTC. I don't know how I came about it. I know one leader kind of pulled me aside and broke down this scripture. And in the scripture, it says, it's Ether 12:27. And if men come unto me, I will show unto them their weakness. I give unto men weakness, that they may be humble. And my grace is sufficient for all men that humble themselves before me. For if they humble themselves before me and have faith in me, then where I make weak things become strong unto them. So that was the first kind of slap in the face over in the MTC, and how it's really not that hard. It was a weakness that I had, but it was a weakness that couldn't be overcome. And so that got me through the MTC. And then I got into the mission field, and that was another stumbling block. It was very difficult. And multiple times I reached out home saying, I can't do this. This isn't for me. I'm not ready to be just indulged in the scriptures. My testimony is very, very weak, if I even had a testimony. And I remember messaging my father, and he sent this email back that really struck me, and I hope it does the same. He said, are you really going to give up on God? Because God never gave up on you. And so that one hit hard.